And with that, the Washington Capitals have more home wins on the season than the Devils have total wins on the season. On Thursday night in Washington, Braden Holtby gets his 8th shutout of the season and the Devils lose 1-0. The first goal doesn't come until just under 7.5 minutes into the third period when Evgeny Kuznetsov throws a puck into the slot and it goes off of a couple bodies. Hershey Bears call-up Jacob Vrana then comes from below the goal line and wins the race to the puck and puts it behind Corey Schneider. With the Devils unable to score on numerous power plays and Miles Wood taking a penalty late in the game with Corey Schneider pulled, the Washington Capitals win the game 1-0. The game was full of penalties, and while the Devils' penalty kill was good, the Devils' power play couldn't get it going. First, let's go over the mistake on the power play goal. When Evgeny Kuznetsov puts that puck in the slot, it draws both John Merrill and Travis Zajac to Connolly in the slot. The mistake lies in John Merrill's decision to go in the slot to cover Brett Connolly. Travis Zajac was all over Brett Connolly, and there was no reason for John Merrill to leave the top of the crease and allow Jacob Vrana to walk in front to pick up the loose puck. Although the Devils run the penalty kill and you can't just put that goal on John Merrill, that goal was definitely preventable. The first and most obvious thing in this game is the low number of shots on goal the Devils had. Having just 15 shots on goal means that Kyle Palmieri, Miles Wood, Stefan Noesen, and John Merrill accounted for 2/3 of the team's shots. Having 4 guys accounting for 2/3 of your shots isn't always terrible, but it's definitely not good when one of them is John Merrill and the other is Stefan Noesen. It could also be mentioned that Noesen and Merrill both only had 2 shots each. While Kyle Palmieri had 3 shots, he generally takes a lot of shots, and Miles Wood had a very good game besides his 2 penalties. The Devils' defense played well top to bottom, especially on the penalty kill. On the penalty kill, whether it was a defenseman or a winger, at the top of the left circle there was always somebody shadowing Alex Ovechkin. Everybody knows how dangerous Alex Ovechkin is from that area, so it was important that the Devils put a shadow on him. Even though the Washington Capitals are good enough to beat you other ways, shadowing Alex Ovechkin and forcing them to beat you in other ways is always the way to go. The Devils killed 4 of 5 penalties against an always dangerous Washington power play. At that point, it just comes down to the Devils taking too many penalties. John Moore, Andy Green, John Merrill, and Ben Lovejoy all had over 3.5 minutes shorthanded time on ice. That shows you how often they were killing penalties. Recently, up until tonight, the Devils' power play was really clicking. Tonight, though, that seemed all for naught. As everybody has been talking about this season, the problem is definitely zone entry. This can really be highlighted especially by a quote from Andy Green. At the beginning of the second period, Steve Kolnowski was talking about an interview he had with Andy Green before the game. He asked Andy Green why the Devils' power play was clicking so well recently, and his first answer was that Travis Zajac was winning faceoffs, and that kept the Devils from wasting about 25 seconds. Interesting to think how if Travis Zajac wins the faceoffs after a penalty call, they don't have to make any zone entries. And since recently the Devils haven't had to make any zone entries, their power play has been red hot. On the first power play, Travis Zajac didn't win a single faceoff. On that power play, the Devils had no shots on goal in just 25 seconds in the offensive zone. On the second power play opportunity, Travis Zajac only won 1 offensive zone faceoff, and that came with 28 seconds left in the second period. On that power play, the Devils also had no shots and had just 12 seconds possession time in the Capitals zone. On the third penalty, which is the double minor to Brett Connolly, things changed. At least for the first 45 seconds. In the first 45 seconds, there were 3 faceoffs in the offensive zone. All 3 of those faceoffs were won by Travis Zajac, and the Devils retained possession in the offensive zone for those 45 straight seconds. Travis Zajac also had a neutral zone win on that power play, and the Devils had 2 shots and 1 minute and 47 seconds possession time in the Capitals zone on that opportunity. While 1 minute and 47 seconds out of 4 minutes is not a lot of possession time, that's still a lot more than the Devils were getting. Finally, it should be noted that Adam Henrique and Stefan Noesen also took faceoffs during those penalty kills. They both also lost all of their faceoffs except for 1 faceoff in the defensive zone by Adam Henrique in the third power play. So basically that faceoff was meaningless to the power play anyways. So I guess what I'm saying is the power play is directly correlated with whether Zajac can win offensive faceoffs or not. So while the offense had a bad game and couldn't get anything going, there was also a lot of issues on the power play. Out of 8 minutes on the power play, the Devils only had 2 minutes and 24 seconds in the Capitals zone. All they had was 2 shots and obviously no goals on the night. The Devils had a lot of shot attempts, so a lot of them got blocked or went wide. The key there is if the shot isn't on goal, you can't score. A guy in the power play that you have to call out but you never want to is Taylor Hall. Taylor Hall, who is a playmaker but can also be a sniper, had no shots on goal in 5 whole minutes on the power play. As I realized Taylor Hall has more to his game than just taking shots on the power play, he had 5 whole minutes and no shots. Finally, there's 2 guys that had great games. The first guy to talk about is Miles Wood. Miles Wood looked as fast and as passionate as ever and was driving the net hard to give the Devils opportunities. Miles Wood seemed to be all over the ice and was surprisingly good in his defensive zone tonight. The one bad play for Miles Wood, though, came with 1:21 left in the third period when he unnecessarily cross-checked a Capitals defenseman with Corey Schneider at the bench. The cross-checking penalty with 1:21 remaining was the nail in the coffin for the Devils' loss. The last guy to talk about that played well was Corey Schneider. With 23 saves on 24 shots and the only goal coming on the power play, Corey Schneider had a great night. Corey Schneider stood tall, made big saves, and gave the Devils every opportunity to win that game. The Devils let him down and couldn't even get 1 goal to send the game to overtime. It's nights like this when Corey Schneider plays great and the Devils still lose that Devils fans forget when they say that Corey Schneider isn't great. I've said it before and I'll say it again, Corey Schneider is not the problem with the Devils. I could be wrong though, and I made this channel to be a conversation. Do you think there's more wrong with the Devils' power play than just zone entry? Leave a comment. I would love to engage in the hockey conversation. The Devils take the ice again tomorrow night at TD Garden to play the Boston Bruins. I'll be making a video on that game tomorrow night or on Saturday, so I'll see you then.